The Apple effect is real, and it's coming to Raleigh, North Carolina. But will it change Raleigh the same way that it changed Austin, Texas? I'm Alison Wojnarowski with the W Real Estate Group here in Raleigh. And after studying Austin's transformation from Apple's presence, I'll show you why I don't believe Raleigh will follow the same model. A little background on Apple's presence in Austin, which began around 30 years ago with a small number of employees. Austin had long since been considered a tech town and was always known as having a small town feel. But as Apple's presence grew, larger tech companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon, Oracle followed to take advantage of Texas's tax incentives and lower cost of living. The job market was and is still booming, and Austin's population was surging faster than it could keep up with. Its once affordable housing market soon became a liability for the city, pricing many lower-income families out of the market and creating a homeless problem throughout the city. The once quiet, small town of Austin transformed into a picturesque skyline with 50-plus story buildings, a booming nightlife, and an amazing food scene. But with that came the pains of big city traffic and congestion. Today, Austin is one of the top places to live in the country, but many longtime residents will say it's barely recognizable from the small city that they grew up in. Its current state has been vastly influenced by what many call the Apple effect, and it's not referring to its products. When Apple establishes a significant presence in an area, its direct impacts of high-paying jobs and housing market increases are certainly felt. But over time, other tech companies follow suit, bringing with a culture and vibe that is many times different than the area's traditions. Just over 2 years ago, Apple announced that it will be investing $1 billion to build its first East Coast campus in the Research Triangle Park between Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill, North Carolina. It promised to bring 3,000 high-paying jobs over the next 10 years. So will Raleigh experience the same positives and negatives that Austin experienced? Let's take a look, starting with the categories that will be first to see the impacts. The first aspect of Raleigh that will see an immediate impact from Apple is the job market. The reported average salaries of the 2,700 plus jobs will be close to $200,000. With Raleigh's current average salaries in the $70,000 range, these jobs will certainly be a catalyst to begin an upward trend in average salaries in the area, as the higher paying jobs will propagate over time to other companies and industries as they try to keep up with attracting top talent. For comparison, Austin is experiencing a massive surge in salary increases, as they have increased 10% over the past year and nearly 30% in the last 3 years. Both of those were on top of an increase of 60% between 2010 to 2020, which are pretty staggering numbers. But let's look at what has come to Austin and when, and these are just some of the highlights. Apple has been in Austin since the 90s, and when they announced their $1 billion expansion in 2018 with the plan to add at least 5,000 jobs, they already had 7,000 employees working in Austin. Google came to Austin in 2007 and now has around 1,500 employees. Facebook opened up their office in 2010 and has now grown to nearly 2,000 employees. Amazon came in 2011 with the promise of over 5,000 jobs, and Oracle has grown to nearly 2,500 employees since 2018. This growth in big business also spurred the startup industry in Austin, as there were nearly 300 startups that relocated to Austin between 2017 and 2019. In the past 3 years, Tesla has established a major presence with over 12,000 employees. Google plans to add nearly 12,000 jobs, and Apple continues to expand with plans to increase their total presence to 15,000. Oracle is also relocating their corporate headquarters from Silicon Valley and will be adding 5,000 jobs. These are massive numbers, and what you'll notice is the lag in annual salary in relation to the announcements, as it takes 5 to 10 years after an announcement for salary impacts to be realized as companies ramp up their hiring. The interesting thing is, Raleigh also experienced a large spike in salaries between 2010 and 2020 of around 46% compared to Austin's 60%. Also, there's been roughly a 5% annual increase over the last 2 years compared to Austin's 10% this past year. The Raleigh-Durham area is an established technology hub of its own, with 60,000 plus employees at Research Triangle Park. Anchored by companies like Microsoft, Lenovo, and Dell, the technology-related jobs have slowly increased over the last 10 years. But until recently, Raleigh lacked the large, splashy additions. Austin and Raleigh have very similar costs of living overall, with Austin trending on the higher side now. And since the data showed Austin's annual salaries just recently increasing significantly, roughly 10 to 15 years after their flurry of new investment announcements, it's unlikely Raleigh would see a similar spike until the 2030s. And even then, I would not anticipate it being quite as drastic, unless a new wave of announcements occurs over the next couple of years that brings it closer to Austin's additions. The most likely scenario is Raleigh continuing its steady 4 to 5% annual increases with minor fluctuations, which is still incredible for the area as a whole. Moving on, the next impact would involve the housing market, which will naturally increase in value with the infusion of higher paying jobs. But I don't believe Apple's impact on the housing market will be proportional across the triangle after looking at Austin's growth rates. Apple settled into the northern Austin area, while many of the other companies either moved into downtown Austin or an office park known as the Domain in northern Austin, which is a larger version of Raleigh's North Hills. The northern and western areas of Austin and its surrounding suburbs were already in high demand, and with the explosion of high-paying jobs over the last 5 to 10 years that were conveniently located to these areas, the demand skyrocketed. The average home prices in Austin, Texas itself have increased by over 80% since 2015 to $557,000 in 2023, which is more than twice the national average. The population followed a similar trend, increasing nearly 5 times the national average since 2010 to roughly 980,000. The popular northern and western suburbs surrounding Austin experienced similar growth, with average home prices increasing between 60 to 100% since 2015, and their populations doubled, if not tripled, during this time. The suburbs south and east of Austin also experienced growth, but it was much steadier, as they did not see that pronounced spike in home prices that the northern and western areas did. And these suburbs' populations have grown at a steady rate, but many have remained very small and rural to this day. So what does this say about the impact on the Raleigh area? So far, the companies have chosen to open their campuses in and around the Research Triangle Park, which is convenient to Cary, Morrisville, Apex, Midtown, North and West Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. Since the Research Triangle Park has been prominent for years, these areas were already popular and generally higher priced. But like Austin, I would expect to see an increase in prices in those immediate areas due to Apple, but not quite as pronounced, at least in the near term. As you've seen from Austin's job growth numbers, they experienced a significant growth in a short period of time, with major companies announcing thousands of jobs left and right. Not to minimize what Raleigh has attracted, but Apple's 3,000 jobs, Google's 1,000 jobs, Microsoft's 500 jobs, and Meta's 100 jobs are nowhere near the scale of what Austin has experienced. And while you may be thinking that Austin is much bigger than Raleigh and thus the impact is scaled accordingly, think again. While Austin itself is nearly 2 times the size of Raleigh, Austin's metro area has around 2.4 million people, while the Triangle as a whole is up to 2.2 million. So the impacts to the region as a whole are fairly comparable. So will Raleigh and its northern and western suburbs see a sudden massive spike in home prices like Austin did? There will be a spike over time, but it won't be nearly as pronounced as what Austin experienced. The areas will certainly grow faster compared to Raleigh as a whole though, which is already growing faster than the national average due to its popularity. If this massive spike occurred down the road, there's certainly the possibility that 15 to 20 years from now, the Apple effect could become a reality, but there's no way to know that today. Austin's major impacts have really been felt over the past 5 years, and significantly in the past 1 to 2 years, which is 10 or more years after major announcements occurred, as it takes time for companies to ramp up in an area. So given the fact that Raleigh's announcements have been much smaller in magnitude than Austin experienced back in the 2010 to 2015 timeframe, and the job promise for Apple extends until 2032, it's highly unlikely that Raleigh will see any massive impacts until the mid-2030s at the earliest, if other companies decide to relocate to Raleigh. Now, I do see Raleigh as the next potential destination for many of these tech companies once Austin is no longer the preferred destination, similar to what has recently happened to Silicon Valley. But this will not occur overnight, and it's hard to imagine any major impacts before the mid-2030s. To keep this video from going too long, look out for this continuation of the topic where we will look at the indirect impacts from Apple's arrival related to the infrastructure transformations, the quality of life, and the culture. Please let us know what you think in the comments below. And if you need any help in finding your next home in the greater Raleigh area, we would love to help you. I'm Alison Wojnarowski, and thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video.